let's talk about what you need to know about the competition to the product or service you're writing copy for. And when the competition doesn't even matter. Because that is one of the first questions you should be asking. Is the competition even relevant? Now that might sound like a ridiculous question. When would it not be? But the fact is, the more niche or specialized you are, the less relevant your competition is. If you offer something people can't get anywhere else, if you have a strong brand, a strong relationship with a list, or a truly unique product, you may not need to address competition at all. And actually, I have a bonus video in this course, in the bonus section of this course, which you can check out, where I show exactly how to tweak some sales copy to render the competition irrelevant. And I actually suggest deleting all the mentions of the competition because if you make the tweak that I suggest. So go and check that out. But one more example to show you what I mean. I worked at a newsletter called The Barefoot Blueprint. It was sort of an investment newsletter, but the brand was strongly built on trust because there are dozens of other investment newsletters that you can get here in Australia. But when we sold that product, those weren't even in the minds of our audience. In fact, we didn't even mention it on our sales page or in any of our marketing material because it was launched in such a way that it was built upon a very trustworthy brand to an audience that sort of knew well who the brand was, and we were selling a product that was truly different. And so we didn't even need to address competition. We didn't go and look at what all our competition were doing on their sales pages. We just focused on making a really great, revolutionary, unique product and selling it to a list of people who knew that we were a trustworthy brand and trusted us. And when we did that, competition became irrelevant. However, granted, in most cases, your brand won't be strong enough to do that, and you do have to worry about competition. So in that case, you have to ask, who are the competition? Now, this is actually an interesting question because who the competition are does depend on the level of awareness of the people you're targeting. For example, if I targeted people who were looking for a copywriter, solution-aware people, my competition would be other copywriters. Because these people are looking for copywriters, so I have to talk about why I would be better than all these other copywriters. But if I were targeting unaware or problem-aware people, that is people who might be saying, well, my business isn't making enough money. So they don't know that they're looking for a copywriter. They just know that their problem is their business isn't making enough money. Then my competition might be things like marketing agencies and lead generation specialists and business consultants, as well as copywriters. See, it kind of broadens depending on the level of awareness. At any rate, you want to understand what someone else's other options would be for solving this problem, other than your product. And if you can, get the actual company or brand names. It's important to know that. Next, you want to know how aware is the market of these other options. So you want to be looking out in your research for mentions of the competition. Is it common for people to have bought from multiple companies? Are they talking about them in forums? Is there a market leader, a famous brand that everyone in this market knows about, that people kind of compare things to? You want to know that, you want to gauge that. And a good way to do that is in surveys, which is an upcoming step I will show you. You can ask in surveys if people have tried any other things or what they know of. Or you can even look at it in people's discussions online. There are many ways to find this out. Next, you want to know what claims or promises are the competition making. So if you find that people are aware of these other options they have, well, what are those other options promising? So let's take, for example, if you are doing copy for a local tradesman or a local small business, an electrician, let's say. Well, there might be other electricians who offer this really good guarantee, or they might be charging $60 an hour. You want to know that kind of thing. If these are other options, for example, I would go and Google electricians in my area and see what comes up. What claims are they making? What guarantees do they have? What promises do they have? What do they offer? You obviously want to know what the competition are offering if it turns out that the competition are indeed relevant. You also want to know, how are we better and different? Now, 90% of the time, this will come from the client. In fact, if the client doesn't know, who will? They should know what is better about their service. It's supposed to be their business. They are meant to know better than anyone what they do better than other people. But sometimes you will have to use the Schlitz beer approach, And if you don't know what that is, it's from the famous copywriting book, Scientific Advertising. Legendary book, really old. And it talked about how the author, Claude Hopkins, worked with a beer company who didn't know what was special about them. And he noticed that they spent all this time purifying all their equipment and going to these great lengths to keep things clean and pure when they were making beer. And he said, why don't you talk about this in your marketing? And they were like, well, every beer maker does it. It's not special. But no one was talking about it in their marketing. So he put that in their marketing and gave them this image of the pure brand of beer. And suddenly their sales shot up. Now this is kind of a bit of a cliche. A lot of marketing people talk about it. And in some industries, it's going to be hard now to tell a story that hasn't been told. But you may find that is the case, especially when you're working with unsophisticated, smaller businesses. They might actually not know how to communicate what's better about them. They truly may not have a grasp of marketing and understand the idea of a unique sales proposition. They don't know how to tell people what is better about them. So that will be your job as the copywriter to come in and find what is special that they do that hasn't been talked about in marketing and to tell that story. Next, you want to look at the competition and find out what their reviews and testimonials are like. What do people like or not like about their products or services? That can be really useful for you. And not just in your marketing, but also in telling your client how to improve their product. Say, hey, I noticed that I think a complaint that a lot of people have is X. Have you considered including that service in your actual product? Because then you can go up one step up from just being a copywriter and you're actually a marketing consultant and you're more valuable. But looking at your competition's reviews and testimonials can be a real goldmine of stuff. Google reviews, Amazon reviews, wherever you can find that stuff, it's useful to know. And finally, are the competition doing anything that we can learn from? If you can find other advertising that your competition are doing, and I have got some resources on that later in this course, then it can be a good idea to look at that. I don't suggest that you get too obsessed with this though. Just see if there are any good ideas, but ultimately you don't want to just be playing catch up. And in fact, my philosophy is that you shouldn't obsess so much over the competition. Now, this is admittedly kind of personal advice and it may not apply for everyone, but I personally chose to work with personal or brands based around personalities that build relationships with their audience, rather than just doing copywriting for some crappy supplement that has this fake made up story and they just want to throw it on ClickBank and advertise on Facebook and make money from cold traffic. I hate that kind of thing. Now, admittedly, I'm not going to bash it. There are some other copywriters who want to do that. And if you do, then yeah, you will have to worry about competition probably and stuff like that. But I choose to work with brands where we're really building a relationship with people. And in that case, as I told you before, the competition becomes more and more irrelevant the more you build this brand that is kind of its own niche towards customers. So that is something to keep in mind when you are studying your competition. Don't overdo it. Now that wraps up what you need to know about your competition, which means that we're just about done with what you need to know to understand your market. And in the next video, we're just going to wrap up that final one, which is what should you be looking for if you are working with an existing product and not a new product? And I will explain everything in that video.